Welcome to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. The only podcast where it's okay to talk in band. On this podcast, you will be able to hear conversations with some of the greatest names in wind band conducting, composing, and arranging. We'll also visit with great college, high school, middle school, and elementary band directors to get their thoughts on various aspects of being a band director. We'll have regular check-ins with instrument specialists, music dealers, and instrument repair professionals. And if that's not enough, we'll even have regular conversations with Dr. Tim, who will help keep us motivated. That's Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. And now, here's Charlie.
Welcome to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends, and this, our 42nd podcast, and number 3 of our second season. Thank you so much for giving up your time to join us, and today, we're going to have 2 more great conversations for you. We'll begin with Ken Snoeck. Ken was the director of bands at Lake Park High School in Roselle, Illinois for many years. And there he developed a nationally recognized and acclaimed program. Fantastic concert band, terrific marching bands. Ken is a double sharp guy, and he's also an award-winning composer and one of the nation's leading experts when it comes to adjudication. I know you will enjoy our conversation very much. Then we're going to switch it up. We're going to have a wonderful exchange with Denny Senseney. Denny founded Senseney Music Company in Wichita, Kansas, and has since retired. Denny has been active in all facets of music education. He was a band director, he opened a music store, he served on national music boards, both in the trade and education worlds, and was a member of several college boards of trustees. But the best thing about Denny is that he is still a country boy from Kansas, and he shares some incredible insights about teaching and about the impact teachers have on their students. You know, sometimes we're looking for the secret when the secret is right in front of us. And most often, all we need to do is look for it right in front of us. I don't know about you, but sometimes I just overthought things. I kept looking for that one thing that would make everything better. And then one day I looked in the mirror, and there it was. It was right there, looking back at me. And I realized that I was the secret to making things happen. And all I had to do was get my butt in gear and start focusing on the problems at hand, one at a time. Well, that's Band Talk today. We'll be right back with my conversation with Ken Snoeck.
Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends is made possible through the support of Hal Leonard, publisher of the Essential Elements Method for Band. Advantage Network Percussion, where you only get the advantage if you're part of the network. ThePodcastingStore.com, your one-stop shop for the finest in podcasting and virtual learning gear. And Vandercook College of Music, home of the Mecca Continuing Education Program, where you'll find an online class for your every need.
If I got one regret from my 23 years of living in Chicago, it's that I didn't spend enough time with this guy. It's crazy. For the first 5 years I lived there, I was 2 miles from his school. And I didn't go by enough. And those rare times when I did go by, I always learned so much. And throughout the years, we've had an opportunity to work together. I remember the old Bands of America days in Whitewater, Wisconsin. And we did some things in Texas. And every time I'm around him, I just chuckle because I'm always just so impressed because he has such a wonderful insight on things, and he's just a brilliant guy, and he's funnier than hell. And so today I get a chance to, via this podcast, to say hello and welcome my dear friend, Ken Snoeck. Ken, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Charlie. Very happy to be here and have a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, you know, I probably learned more about you through our mutual friend, Kevin Lepper, than anybody, because, you know, when we were out in the burbs and we'd drive into Vandercook and Kevin would ride with me, I would get the complete Ken Snoeck lesson of the day kind of thing. So this is what he learned, and he would always share it with me. So in case you want to know, he is president of your fan club. And so you can send him the bill for that or whatever.
No, and probably the only member.
Oh, no, I don't think so. You know, Ken, most everybody in the band world knows the name Ken Snoeck. And if they haven't, they're probably been hiding under a rock all their lives. But, you know, for those of people that know you, or maybe that don't know you, tell us a little bit more about like where you grew up and how music became a part of your life.
Well, being in band was kind of a sideways thing. When they came around with the recruiting, it's, you know, that looks like it'd be fun, like it'd be interesting. But at the time, we didn't have much money at all. My father worked in construction, and most winters, we didn't have much of any income. So it turns out that for $3, I could become a drummer. It was $1 for the sticks, $1 for the pad, and $1 for the book. So I got to be in band for $3. Without that, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Well, and what grade did you start?
I think it was fifth or sixth grade. But I was in Roseville, Michigan. I was very fortunate to have an excellent high school band director in Seraphim Mike, who is still with us. I talked with him just a couple of days ago. He's going on 97 now, and still plays and still conducts. He complains that his embouchure is not as strong as it was, and his fingers don't move as fast. But he's still making music.
So is he the person responsible for getting you to start arranging and composing?
He encouraged that. I had an interest in doing something with it when I was in high school. The summer before my senior year, he took an arranging class at the University of Michigan from Jerry Billick. And he came back and he had some materials and things, and he let me look through the materials and what he had been working on. And with that, I asked if I could try something, and I did. It was not very complete at all, and he completed it for me, but the band played it, and he gave me the credit for it, and that was the hook. It was set from then on.
Well, you were
that was 1962.
62. So you were a drummer that actually knew how to read music back then. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's terrible. I'm going to pay for that one. I know I'll pay for that one. So what's your fondest memories of your high school band besides that? What do you remember from those days?
Well, of course, there are the music making things, but kind of the fun things. Before our major concert, we would have rehearsal in the gym. And there's this one in particular where there was a major tune where the percussion did not play. And we set it up. I somewhat instigated it, where we put out tablecloth on the keyboards and things, and I had candles, and we had snacks and things out there as they're playing. And he looks up and sees what we're doing and is kind of puzzled. And so then I took him a plate of treats and made that rehearsal a rather special memory for us all.
So that was in the Detroit area, correct? Where you went to high school? So
yes, suburban Detroit.
So when you graduate, there you're sitting with the University of Michigan and Michigan State right in your backyard, but you end up choosing Central Michigan. How'd that come about?
Well, I didn't start out to be a music major. I started off to be a chemistry major at the University of Michigan. While I was there, I played in marching band and played in concert bands. And I got to play in the first U.S. the performance of the Benjamin Britten's a war requiem. But I quickly found out that I really did not want to be in a chem lab my whole life, and switched to music major. I was only there one more semester, but I did have some interesting experiences, like taking violin from Ma Green, Elizabeth Green, who's kind of known as the as the mother of American conductors.
So then, how did you get to Central then?
Well, I had been to a CMU for All-State, and it was a good experience. I liked the campus. It was better for where I was psychologically at the time to not be on a monster campus, and it worked well for me.
So did you go there to pursue a degree in music ed, or was it composition?
The only composition class I ever had was in my second year of grad school. I had a space, and I took a composition as an independent study. I did a couple of things first semester for smaller ensembles, and as we were ending the semester, I told the prof, Doc Rivard, that I wanted to write a piece for band, and he kind of chuckled and sure, but he said, "Go ahead, give it a try." So I started over break writing, most of it sitting in the floor in the living room of the married student housing, and by spring I had a Scaramouche all laid out. I had been going through the course of the first part of the semester, going in with parts of it, to show that I had been working, and I got much encouragement from Dr. Rivard, and that was a big plus. By the time that I finished it, he went to the director of bands, who was Norm Dietz, and asked him to read it. And so I wrote up all the parts by hand by myself. No, I did not have a copyist for that, and they read it. And from the reading, Norm Dietz offered to perform it that spring on the last concert. So from winter break to at the end of the semester, I wrote the symphony. It was rehearsed and performed.
Yeah, I want to get to that in just a minute. But first, you talk about Norman Dietz, who was the legendary director of bands at Central. And I think he was there for 30 years or a little over 30 years. And all of the people that went to Central that I know, and we get into a conversation about their experience there. And when they had Norman Dietz, I mean, he was really an icon. He was a luminary in the band world then in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. So what things do you remember from his teaching when you were there, and any of those things that you carried over with you throughout your teaching career?
Absolutely. No, he's largely responsible for who I am on the podium. I learned in watching him do it how to make more than the sum of the parts. But there was a very definite a synergistic effect that he was able to get students to perform above their individual levels. And seeing that happen day after day after day, that and just an absolute dogged persistence. And persistence is one of the most important factors in success when working with students, is that you just don't let it be good enough.
So I trust then you never set out a smorgasbord back in the percussion section and served him a plate of food during rehearsal.
I did not.
That's great. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you composed Scaramouche, which won the CBDNA Award for Best Original Wind Work in 1971. And outside of the fact that you said you wanted to write a piece for Wind Band, which I think is fantastic, what made you select a clown character? I think probably this is the impetus, isn't it? The clown character who's characterized by being boastful and a coward as the title. I mean, that could almost serve as being somebody in Washington that we.
Well, actually, I came to the title. I found out that association after I had titled it, but it was named for the pet turtle of a friend of mine.
Wow. Really? So it had nothing to do with mythology and all this.
No. It's not the Italian Della Art figure. No.
So I'm giving you too much credit, Ken. God, you just stumbled on that. You should have bought a lottery ticket that day. Wow. So you spend your time at Central, you get your master's degree there. You were on the faculty there for a while. And then this opportunity comes along for you to really enter the ranks of high school band directing in Bridgeport, Michigan.
Yes.
Talk about that position a little bit, will you?
Well, I was the fifth person, the fifth instrumental music person in the district. And what was very exciting about it was that it was team teaching all the way from beginners through the top high school bands. So there was backup, there was support, there were people to go to, and in all the different combinations. We worked on all combinations of the five. So you really got to know these, the other people you were working with, and they were all excellent musicians, really fine musicians. It turns out that all four of the other ones were trumpet players, so I was the odd man out. But working with really good musicians and really excellent teachers was a really important part of my early public school teaching.
And that was a great program at Bridgeport. I mean, that was a fine band. I remember seeing him at the Summer Nationals at Bands of America, and I was always impressed.
Well, actually, the Summer Nationals, the very first one in '76, was my very first gig being the head director.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, those were good times, I'll tell you. So from there, you end up at Lake Park High School in Illinois. And I know that while that transition was happening, you were also very active in developing adjudication materials that have had a national impact. So when did that motivation for you to start digging more into how bands are adjudicated and the criteria and all of that? How did that all start germinating with you?
Well, in '78, '79, there was the big economic crash, and the automobile industry went really in a tailspin. Teaching in Michigan, in the suburb of Saginaw, where major employers are all GM facilities, there was a huge economic impact. And the district there, the Bridgeport district, had to make major cutbacks. At the time, I had been in the district for 5 years, and they cut back to 11 years in district, regardless of subject area. And at the same time, I had the opportunity to come to Chicago or to be a part of then Marching Bands of America as the adjudication coordinator. We moved to Chicago, didn't really know much of anybody here. I started beginning of July. And one of the first things was to create an adjudication handbook, because there had not been one before. And so that was one of the first things I did.
So how did you feel your work on adjudication and adjudicator training has influenced not only the whole marching band activity, but the band activity as a whole?
Well, what we all want is something of consistency when our groups are adjudicated. If we get a 1, a 2, and a 3 in concert, then we don't know, was it good, was it mediocre, was it not good? And the closer we can come to consistency, the more comfortable we are as the directors. But just because it's consistent doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. But the person who's the odd person out may well be the only one who is accurate with the evaluation. And trying to get all of those things into one where yes, there's a need for consistency, but there's also a need to hear the outliers, to hear the odd person out, and to understand why they have the opinion they do.
So how can those people who are interested in learning more about the adjudication process, how can they get started to go about it? I mean, do you have a book on that? Are you working on a book on that? Are there resources available?
To my knowledge, there aren't many things at all available. For a while was the Judges Academy thing that Joe Allison and Tim had put together, and that was working for many people. You rehearse your band differently, and you program your band differently when you have an understanding more of how it's going to be evaluated. And they were really taking major steps in providing that information and making opportunities available. Unfortunately, that's no longer available. It's no longer out there. And short of signing up to be part of a training, say for Central States judges or in some other judges association, I'm not aware of anything right now that does that.
You talk about training, and there's this terrible story I have to tell on myself, and I apologize for being any sort of self-serving here, but you were doing a summer training session at Whitewater for people that wanted to tip their toe into adjudicating, and I was one on that, and I was so young and so stupid at the time. I'm just old and stupid now. And one of the things that you said, we have to have as you go out tonight to do the field, you got to be in uniform. And in those days, the judges wore black pants and black shirts, and you have to have a black cap, right? A black cap. So, God, I didn't have a black cap with me, and I was just panicked. I mean, I just knew that I had flunked and, I was never going to do this again. So my wife wanted, and I jump in the car, and we are driving through Whitewater, Wisconsin. We are going every place, and I'm looking for a black baseball cap, a black cap. And we're driving here, and we go to this sports store. They don't have it. Nobody has it. And we are just right at the end of our rope, and we come to this intersection, and right across the street, there's a sign in the window, and it says truck caps, all colors, all sizes. And I said, Wanda, look at that, truck caps. I said, that's it. So I go in, and the lady said, may I help you? And I says, yes. I said, I need a black cap. And she goes, well, what kind of truck are you driving? And I said, I don't care what it says on it. I says, I just need a black cap. She goes, what kind of truck? The cap has to fit on a truck. And I said, no, I make this gesture like a baseball cap. And she just shakes her head no. And she says, sir, these are for the back of a bed of a pickup truck. Oh, sorry. And I walked out of the door, and I come back to the car, and I tell my wife, and we laugh for 2 hours, and I'm still embarrassed by that. But so there you go. I never did get that black cap, by the way, and it's a good thing. So, hey, let's change the topic here. So while you were at Lake Park, you developed an incredible band program, and most people probably only knew of the marching band, but you also had incredibly fine concert band program, and but your teaching load was just not the normal band director's teaching load. You did a little bit more than band. So give us a rundown of what you did and how that program looked at Lake Park.
I had 2 concert bands when it started. Lake Park is one high school. It's in 2 buildings, 3.5 miles apart. Freshmen, sophomores at one building, junior, seniors at the other. And so the junior senior building band was not level, it was juniors and seniors. There was the opportunity to get a couple of freshmen, sophomores in it who would start their day there and then go to the other building and pick up second period at the other building. But there were 2 band classes. The rest of my day was filled with supervision and doing other things. I had an interest in computers, and the district was offering classes for teachers, and I took programming classes and things, and that led to when the district implemented programming classes for all students. I ended up being one of those, and so I had 2 bands and 3 sections of computer programming that I was teaching for a while. In years when they would allow music theory to run, where they would think there were enough students to run that, then I would have only 2 class periods of computer programming or computer applications.
So how many years?
That,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, that and supervision. I used to just really hate the idea of lunchroom supervisions, but that was where I built rapport with teachers in other departments and got to know them, and they got to know me, which helped a lot later on as the band became more active and more involved, that there were allies, understanding allies in all departments.
Yeah. So how many years did it take from the time you got there in 1981, to get it to the point where you felt like you really had it established and you only needed to make a few tweaks along the way to keep it going?
I retired in 2004.
So you never made it. You never arrived.
No.
It was always a journey.
It always requires careful nurturing and maintenance. There is no automatic to it. Every year was different. Every year had a different personality. There was no, this is just like whatever year. No, every year was unique and required its own sussing out what needed to be done to make it as successful as it could possibly be.
Yeah, we both know that you can never let your guard down. It's always something different. But I asked that question because hopefully we're coming out of the COVID pandemic, and hopefully in the next few months, and maybe life will become a little bit more normal come fall. And as I think about teachers going back to school with their band programs, I think a lot's going to have been lost or sidelined anyhow, and that things will be different. So it's going to be like starting a new position in many ways. If you were in this position of having taught online virtually for the last year or so and getting back to your program, what would your approach be?
I think that besides the obvious parts of playing technique and those things, probably by far the most important thing overall is going to be the culture, that they've not been with their peers. They've not had the experiences with their peers. They've not created the bonding through difficult times and through successes and trying times that they would have had. We're going to be working at building leadership in our programs for probably several years. We just will not have those students who are stepping up to the next level. They're going to be coming up 2 and 3 levels. It's going to take really good teaching that all of us need to be really, and I say us, I've been retired, this is my 17th year, but I still feel like I'm in there. That we have to be very methodical. We have to be very nurturing. We have to listen to what the students need and provide them with what they need, not with what we feel we need.
So when you reestablish a culture, are there specific things? I mean, you just mentioned some things that directors have to listen and be careful and adjust and all that, but any specific things like with programming or activities that you do that people should be thinking about?
Making sure that we're choosing challenges that are going to give them some measure of success. I don't believe in making everything watered down. That's not the way that I worked, but giving them perhaps fewer challenges, not lesser challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Still having the expectations of musicality. The technique will come in time. That's not the most important part, but making music so that you're making contact with the soul of the person, which is what got us all engaged and keeps us engaged.
Right. So as directors begin to plan for this, and hopefully they've been thinking about this for a long time, what kind of communication do they need to establish with their school administration? Especially in the area of financial support or schedule, because we know that time is going to be at a premium and money is going to be short with the tax base.
It is, and with the school districts being one or more years behind the economy, it'll take longer. You can do a great deal without a whole lot of money by making sure that you're making best use of what monies you do get. Our program never had a ton of money, but we still were quite active. But this whole thing, it's really going to start with, if you don't already have a really good relationship with your administration, is culture that. I've had my share of very difficult administrators, and what I found worked best was for them to get to know me and for me to get to know them as people, not going to them only when I had a problem or when I had a need, but stopping by and asking them how their day is going, talking to them about what's important to them, so that there's a value system built up.
And what messages should they directors be sending to students and parents as we get ready for this?
The most important is that the students are the part that is most valued. That their success as individuals is what's going to lead to the success of the program. It's going to be a lot of hard work. The damage done to feeder programs, beginners not started, middle school kids lost. It's going to take quite a while for high school programs to recover, I think. In your district, if you're faced with, there have to be major cuts, something that we tried to tell people in Bridgeport back at the time was to don't cut beginners in middle school. If anything has to go, it should be the top end, the high school. If you cut the beginning programs, there is no high school program.
Yeah. Well, what kind of things do you think are going to carry over from the pandemic? We're going to integrate into our normal day-to-day teaching.
There will no longer be snow days. There'll be distance learning days. Sorry about that, folks. We have tools. We have tools to better engage students who have attendance difficulties, be it through health or family issues, ways for them to still be engaged with what the in-school students are doing. We have ways to get more information to them, to give them opportunities to still be part of when they cannot be physically present. And we have those tools now. We've all been having to use those tools. It was kind of a sudden lurch into technology for many, but we have those tools now, and they're going to be useful to us from here forward.
So where do you see music education heading after all this is behind us?
Those programs that show value to the school community and to the community at large are going to do well. If we're waiting for others to come and give us things, we will fail. We have to prove our value, prove our worth.
Mm. So you retired, you said 17 years ago. That's just seems impossible to me, but 17 years. So what kind of things have kept Ken Snoeck busy for 17 years?
Uh, One of the things that I really look forward to is the online arranging class that I teach. It's It keeps me in touch with people all over the country, all over the world, and it's been a really important part. Every so often, I have conversations with people who are still in the field and have the opportunity to do some mentoring, and it's it's really a very gratifying thing to be able to listen to what their issues are and to try and brainstorm with them what are some ways to approach them.
Okay, last question. Your wife, Pamela, worked with you for many years as a member of your staff. I think she was kind of heading up the color guard portion, but in her own world, she's a really successful school administrator, and I think she still works as a consultant with school administrators. So what's something that she taught you or something that you learned along the way that made you a better teacher or a better band director? Besides her love of flamingos.
Well, I think the one is breathe. That that not everyone is as intensely engaged in the activity as I, and that's okay.
Pretty good. I think we all need to breathe once in a while, don't you?
Yeah, there are times when we get so into what we're doing that we forget that in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to change the orbit of the planet. It's going to change some individual lives, but it's not going to change. Most people don't even know that we exist, but those who do are very important to us.
That's pretty good advice. That's great advice. Ken, it's always a pleasure to spend time with you. And I'd sure appreciate you spending some time and chatting with me for the podcast. I know our listeners are going to love this, and I sure loved it. And I wish you well and hope to see you soon.
Well, thank you so much, Charlie. This has been a great opportunity. Thank you.
Every time I'm around Ken Snoeck, I learn something. He's a brilliant thinker, and I can tell you when Ken was in the hunt, there was no more focused and determined individual to be found. His preparation was meticulous, and his teaching didn't waste a minute. He's made a huge impact on the music education world, and directors coast to coast owe a debt of gratitude to Ken for blazing the trail for so many of us. Thanks, Ken. We'll be back with our conversation with Denny Senseney in just a minute.
This is Drew with thepodcastingstore.com, your one-stop shop for everything podcasting and remote learning, and a proud sponsor of Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. Listen to what we've been working on in this clip from our podcast. So Ward, one of the things that's been coming up as we've been doing all of these wireless systems and tests and things like that is the connectors. And there's confusion, I know I've had it too, before I really started delving into this, between TRS, TRRS. What's the difference, and why does it make a difference?
Well, it's real easy to confuse the differences because people tend to think if it's a 3.5 millimeter or 1/8 inch, which is, by the way, the same two terms for the same size plug. As long as it fits, it works fine, but it has different wiring for different applications. The TRS, which is short for tip ring sleeve, is the most commonly used because that's either stereo headphones.
To hear the rest of this podcast, please visit thepodcastingstore.com, your one-stop shop for everything podcasting and remote learning. This is Drew with thepodcastingstore.com. Now back to Charlie.
There's no better business in the world than being a band director. And I'll tell you, one of the things that is probably best about it are the people that you get to meet along the way. And our next guest is one of those people. I was a high school band director in Olathe, Kansas, and had the opportunity to meet him, and it was just amazing. I mean, he's just an amazing guy, and the more I got to know him over the years, the more I love him and appreciate him, and the more I saw how big his heart is for kids and for bands and for music education. And I just had to bring him on because I think he's got so much to share with us. And I want to welcome my good buddy, Denny Senseney. Denny, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Charlie, for everything. You've done so much to influence my life as well. So that's what it's all about. Hang around good people every chance you get.
Well, that's all we have, folks. Thanks for joining us today. And Denny, you're a longtime friend. Like I said, I remember meeting you when I was a high school band director in Olathe, Kansas, and we immediately became friends. And then you were running Senseney Music Company at that time in Wichita, Kansas. And I know you were also active with NAM, the National Association of Music Merchants, and then later on the Midwest Clinic. But I'm sure many of our listeners may know the name Senseney Music, but maybe not the person behind it. So tell us where you grew up and how music got to be a part of your life.
Oh, wow. I grew up in southeast Kansas, a little town of Moran, Kansas, and then moved to Snoeck, Kansas, the big city. It was all of 10,000 people. And fourth grade came by, and Mr. Peak started beginning band at grade school, and my folks got me a trombone from the Sears catalog, and off we went. And Mr. Peak also taught at the then junior high, and he started a Saturday band. He picked, what we didn't know was he picked several kids from all over the grade schools in town. They came down to the junior high, which was big stuff, man. And we got to set in a band and play out of those little bitty march books we all used to have. And it was part of something special. And the band sounded really good for being a bunch of sixth graders to me. And then I went on to high school, and man, my senior year, a teacher came along named Farrell Coy. Mr. Coy changed my whole life. I decided I was going to go become an engineer or architect or something. And Mr. Coy came along and started and got me back in band, which I had dropped out of because it wasn't the direction I thought I wanted to go in. And he had not only his concert band and a marching band, he started a jazz band. He started a music theory class. He started all kinds of, the whole world opened up. But mainly it was the opportunity to hang around a good teacher. And I think most of us probably owe where we're at or what we're doing to some good teachers. Sometimes they weren't in the classrooms, probably. Some good teachers were scoutmasters or church leaders or coaches, but somebody that had something special that we said, I'd like to be like Mr. Coy. And so headed off to Wichita State University after staying a year at junior college in Snoeck, and graduated in 1969 and went to become a music educator, band director in Oxford, Kansas, little town. And I love that little town because all those kids and all those parents really supported the program. Eventually moved on up to a little town about 10 miles from there, Wellington, Kansas. And between Oxford and Wellington, I taught 9 years. So
you weren't thinking of starting a music store back when you were in high school. You were talking about you're going to be a music teacher. You're going to change the world.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to be Mr. Coy if I could do that and make some of the changes in people's lives that he made in mine. Plus, it was great to do that by playing music.
That's awesome. So then what led you out of the classroom to start Senseney Music Company?
A couple of things. One, the school music store that Calavan Music at that time in Wichita was failing and eventually went out of business. And at that point, I was looking to the future and saying, how can I stay close to teaching and kids and other teachers, and decided to get started. So we opened the doors and I got in the boat and started rowing. And 30 some years later, I look back and think, wow, what a great choice. I've got you get influenced by people along the line. And sometimes you just have to get in the boat and start rowing, and hopefully it's good.
I think a lot of teachers don't understand that the real good school music dealers are still in music education. I mean,
Well,
they're just taking a different facet to it. You know, it'd be like a principal is still in education, right? I mean, a music dealer is still in music ed. I just think that's so important.
the really, really good ones are the ones that care about teaching and its impact on kids and communities and schools and the world. Teachers have more opportunity to influence other people's lives than a lot of people out there that I know.
Yeah, you know, one of the ways you did that, I mean, you in addition to servicing all the schools and kids in your region with instruments and accessories and supplies, but you also did a lot of in-service things for your teachers. In fact, you're the guy that started this program that's been replicated across the country called the Total Band Directors Workshop, and I had the honor of participating in a couple of those. What was your motivation for doing that?
Well, I have to give credit to that to one of our employees. Bill Johnson was a school band director in Cheney that I hired to call on schools because he was a great teacher. He had a lot to share and he cared. And Bill came in my office one day. We had done clinics and workshops and reading sessions at that time. And we had the opportunity through our business contacts, through publishers like Hal Leonard, through manufacturers like Con Selmer, who knew the great teachers, the great influencers. So we brought those clinicians in once in a while, once a year. And Bill said, why don't we do kind of a mini Midwest clinic? Let's do a 2 or 3 day thing where we can bring teachers in and we can bring the best of the best teachers from around the country and share things with them. And, you know, we decided not just to do it at the store, we did it at the country club because I wanted the teachers to feel every bit as important as doctors and lawyers and all the other professionals in the world. And we fed them all their meals. We had exhibits, we had music, we had people like Harry Bejan and you and Tim Lotzenheiser and on and on and on every year. Paula Kreider, just those really good teachers who cared a lot about helping teachers be happier and better.
Yeah. Well, you've worked with hundreds of directors during your years at Senseney and even beyond. And, you know, there are certain directors that stand out from the pack. I mean, you look at them and they tend to do more things, better things. They seem to get it, you know? So like, what are those characteristics of those teachers that get it? If you had to identify what characteristics they had, what would it be?
Well, first of all, none of us get it right out of the box. We have to learn from experience what failed and what didn't fail and what worked. And we learn some good and bad things from watching others. And I think what we learned about those, that you and I and Tim Lotzenheiser, good friends, talk a lot about how did that teacher get it and the other one didn't, or what did they get? And I think about that all the time. And I think there's a few things that are similar. First, they all have great character. They told the truth. They tried to take care of other people and display to them how you can be a good leader and a leader that's just out for yourself. They hang around the best of the other people they can, whether they're teachers or not. Great leaders hang around other great leaders. Harry Bejan used to tell a story when he was just starting in college after he got out of the service in World War II. He said, I used to sneak down to Detroit to the symphony rehearsals, and I knew a guy on the back door who'd let me go in and just hide in the corner and listen to those great conductors and how they conducted and how they spoke words that got that orchestra to make something better or different. So I think it's the people that you learn from, both good and bad. So the great teachers care about all of the students. They're not out just to make themselves look better, or just to get #1 ratings, or just to get to be the best. Of course, you want to be good. You want to give the kids the best experience they can have, because there's not many things in this life where you get everybody in band is on the first team. You don't get to pick the best 10 or the best 11 to play at contest or play a concert. Everybody adds or detracts from the final product. So it's really important that we let those kids know that they're contributing or not, and everybody wants to contribute. As I look back, I wish I'd have been more accepting of those who weren't as interested as I was.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
I hear you. No, I think that's right on. I think it's those people that get it are just acquiring it. Let's put it that way. They just keep looking and learning and adding more tools to their toolbox. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, in your opinion, what does a great music education do for a kid? You are so kid-centric in all of, everything that you've done. And when I talk to you, you're so kid-centric. But, we know kids aren't going to always grow to be music majors. They're not going to play for the rest of their lives. But there are some certain takeaways from being a kid that plays in band. What are those things?
Oh, every kid gets different things out of sitting in somebody's band. The ones that want to be really good players and take private lessons and play great literature get one thing out of playing in band. The kids that sitting in the third trumpet section get something different. But I think part of it is they enjoy making music as part of a group, especially if that group is constantly getting a little better. They're playing music that's a little complicated, in the right word, a little more enjoyable to play because there's more going on. I think they have to get something out of playing in the group. I think they also get something from being proud of the output of a group, knowing that they did something of their part to that. I think they get to watch and see what it takes to work hard and have fun. There's a difference between fun of working hard and accomplishing something that's different than just having fun, playing. We play in the band, but we work hard. And when we do that, we play a little harder music. We get a little better at what we do. And you know what we all love is having mom and dad or grandpa or our friends or the people at church or the people saying, boy, the band sounded great the other night. Or your teacher. This doesn't always give you false praise. They tell you what you did well, and here's what the next step is we've got to do. I think that's something you keep for the rest of your life. I know that kids came back and said that to me. We didn't know what you were teaching us. At the time, it was far more than just music.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And some of them, I failed and probably wasn't as great a teacher as I wished I was. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all had those moments. I'll tell you, the mea culpas moments when we look back and go like, man, had I just got my head out of my rear end and noticed this, I'd have been so much better, man. Wish we could go back in certain cases, but
that's a fruitless endeavor.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the way it goes.
Well, you've retired. You got a chance to reflect on being a music teacher, owning a music business, serving with national organizations that were helping chart the course for music and music ed. And what do you think some of the challenges are the teachers are facing as they come out of the pandemic?
How during the pandemic and on the way out, I know that those who love making music in a group are missing that somehow. And in different parts of the country, there's still groups that aren't meeting in band at all from the beginning all through high school. And some have been participating somehow all the way through. So I guess we could take care, we could enjoy some technology that gives us more opportunities to play music with somebody else. It's best if we can do it live, sitting close by and listening and hearing. But maybe there's some other ways we can learn how to play our own instrument better. We can hear great players play a piece of music, perhaps that we're playing in band, play their part. Maybe we can have them talk about breathing, tone, intonation, and we can have some great products developed, and they're out there, but I think we can use more of it so the kids can have other ways to become inspired by playing music, becoming better, and having people recognize what they're doing that's well.
Yeah.
We've got to find ways to get together in different ways. We all have to do that.
Well, we know the importance of communication. I mean, you're one of the great communicators, but teachers right now, they need to be communicating about, what we're facing after the pandemic. What kind of message should they be sending their school principals and their parents and their communities?
Oh, probably stay in touch. Remember, administrators were teachers too because of somebody that influenced them on becoming a great teacher. And administrators watched and learned how to be an administrator by watching some great administrators. And in some cases, even I watched some great coaches who weren't really more interested in anything but winning games. And so teachers can communicate more with their administrators or school boards, their parents, about what is it that they think is important. Why? What are my kids going to get out of this? Communicating with the students more regularly, more often. Since we can't do it in a class every day, now we have to figure out ways to do that online or with a phone call. Can you imagine how good it would be for some students to hear from a teacher once in a while that says, I care about you? That's something that's really important that the kids are missing. We all miss that. So anytime we can let somebody know we care about them, and here's something that I can share with you that I know something about. In my case, it's how to make music. In another case, I think teachers need to hang around other teachers, not just other band directors. There are great teachers in everybody's building that we ought to go sit in the back once in a while and just observe. How did they do that? What did they do I can learn from? Watch an administrator. Talk to them about what are their problems. What can I learn from you? And I will give you all I've got to do for the students that I teach and for the parents who are paying taxes and for legislators who are making decisions about what education is going to be like. We have to engage with all of those people all the time and find out what we can do better. We had a great inauguration yesterday and talk about all working together to make something better than it was before.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, there's going to be a need for directors once things get back to normal. They're going to need to either rebuild or redefine the culture of their program. All the separation leads to certain breakdowns. Standards and things like that, and just the how we do business on a normal basis. In many of the schools, they've graduated senior classes, so they got new leaders there, new kids in leadership roles. What things that are some things that teachers could do to maybe help rebuild their culture once they're back together?
Oh, well, that's a hard question. I think if you could get together with who you think are the future leaders, You know, there are good leaders and there are bad leaders. There are really effective leaders who were awful in World War II.
And in 2021.
Or in 2020. There are some leaders who know the mechanisms of leading, and there are some then that get both the mechanism and how to be a good leader. So if you could get on a Zoom with different groups of people in your program, small groups where everybody got a chance to say something, just tell them, I'd like some input from you folks. We haven't had band for a year or whatever. When we get back, this is a time to learn something new. What would you like to see happen? Give them a chance to give some input. And it can be a different group every week for a while. You're going to find good leaders are going to find their way to the top by watching other good leaders. So maybe they need to get engaged with other great leaders in other classrooms in the school. You know who the great teachers are in your buildings. Find out from that teacher, who are the really good students who get it. I'm not talking about just your A+ students. It's who cares about learning. Can I ask some of them to join me? And maybe you find a great history or a great coach or a great this or that, and get all kinds of different people to sit around and talk about what is it can we do to make things better than they used to be. And that's a lifelong goal for all of us.
Yeah, that talking to other people, man. I think I'm real big on that. That's why I'm talking to you. See, I'm learning right now. That's why people are really into podcasting, because they get a chance to kind of eavesdrop on conversations. And, you know, I think we all learn a lot from that. Well, if I'm a college kid and I want to be a band director, a school band director,
okay,
what kind of advice would you give me?
Oh boy. Go listen. Find out from your college music ed teachers or college band directors who that I can get to easily in driving distance can I go watch teach. And that probably needs to start early, freshman, sophomore years, and do it on your own. Don't wait for somebody to tell you got to do this for so many hours. Get out there and observe what you can learn from different great leaders. There's lots of different kinds of leaders and lots of different ways to be a good leader. You'll have to find something that works for you. Offer to do private lessons for that teacher who's done a really good job, who can't teach enough private lessons. They've got so many hours in the day. If you could offer to teach some private lessons for the kids, maybe even take care of the kids who can't afford private lessons on their own. They probably got some great students who can't afford private lessons. Maybe that's an area you could fill as a student. Listen, find out from somebody who's the best college band you've ever heard. Where can I get a hold of something to listen? I don't know about you, Charlie, but when I was in high school band, I don't think we ever heard a recording of a great band. Recordings I had were my folks' Columbia Broadcasting Record Club. They bought once a month, and I got them to do some jazz every once in a while. I go home every night and put somebody's big band on and play along with them. So I hope, is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I mean, go out and watch, and go out and, you know, be hungry. Want to learn, want to experience, want to help in any way you can, and not doing it to get money, not to get paid for it. You're doing it to get, the pay is going to be the experience, and the pay is going to come way down the road if you just do it right.
Well, in fact, the pay you're going to get as a music educator is out of most people's control. It's in the control of somebody else. And hopefully, if you're as good as you can be, you'll have opportunities maybe to get a little more income, but I'm not sure that's the most important thing. We ought to be paid. Teachers ought to be paid as much as anybody in the world in any profession, because they influence more than anybody else. But we got a lot of work to do there. But one of the other things I wanted to add, instead of just watching the best teachers out there, and I don't know how to say this without hurting somebody's feelings, but I think sometimes We ought to go watch some teachers who are struggling for two reasons. One, to see what they're doing that they get in their own way. And the other is maybe we can offer to do some things without hurting their feelings. Maybe we can teach lessons in those programs to get them to have some kids learn that maybe we can help this program get better. So don't just watch the people who are great successes, watch those who are also struggling, knowing that they're not happy about struggling. They wish they could be better. They just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to a point a little earlier about it's so important for that teacher or that student who wants to become a teacher to get with somebody to kind of like say, what should I look for? What are the kind of things I need to be watching for? Give me some clues, give me some questions to ask. So that you just don't go in there and go, I have no idea what I'm looking for. No idea what I'm hearing. Is there a procedure when kids come in the room? Does the guy warm up the ensemble a certain way? What kind of questions does he ask? When he stops the band, is he providing information, or is he just disciplining the kids? Or is he just, there's so many questions, right? And if those kids kind of have that list as they go in to kind of think about that stuff, I think that's going to help them more than anything.
Yes. And watching how people do the things that are hard to do, like discipline. That's very difficult to teach if you don't have that background in doing that. There's a lot going on in school music programs, orchestras, choirs, bands. You don't have just 19 or 20 or 30 kids in the classroom. You've got, from 20 to 100 in the classroom, and you're not going to see everything that goes on in that class. You're going to do your best, but man, there's the music teachers have a special place in my heart because they'll take every kid they can cram into the room in their program and buy enough uniforms somehow and buy music and repair instruments and manage a budget and put up with those who are in that program for a different reason than you are, and figuring out how you can get everybody in a seat on the boat. And let's start at least rowing in somewhat the same direction. And what I found was once those kids have some success for themselves and they get viewed as being part of a great group, whatever that group is, because that group is really good at something, then they get what I used to call the want-tos. Now I want to sit down and work harder. Now I want us to get better. Now I'm going to pay a little more attention and we're going to get better and better. I never will ever forget the K-State used to have a marching band contest every year. And we went one year and we worked hard, and the kids lined up in the end zone getting ready to take the field. And we did the high step. And they clicked out on the field and came to attention. And then they clicked out to their starting position in their high knee lift. And they got a standing ovation from the crowd that day. And you could almost see their chest puff out, and their instruments got held correctly. And they did something from that moment on. They agreed, they understood that they worked hard and somebody noticed. Then they wanted to get more of that. And you know what? I bet that influenced, I hope, all of those kids for the whole rest of their lives.
Yeah, that positive reinforcement can be an addiction. And it makes you work harder and it makes you do gooder. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to keep doing that all the time. It's a little bit at a time. And a lot of us teachers want it all right now.
Yeah. So as you look back, anything you do differently?
Nope. Of course, there's lots you can do different, but that's kind of a waste of time. No, I just want to keep thinking about this. I've got a kind of a goal. Ken Burns, who does all of the programs for
those documentaries. Yeah.
I think it's time for Ken Burns to do something on teaching. Why it's so important. Why we fail as taxpayers and in the education profession to not take our position as some of the most influential leaders there will be in all of our future people's lives is great teachers. Too many times in my career, I heard teachers say to a student who came up and said, "Hey, I want to be a band director," who said, No, you don't want to do that. Can't make any money, long hours, da 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 da. Or parents who would give that same thing. We need to have those teachers and those parents saying, we need the best of the best to be teachers, because they're going to impact lives forever.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a teacher a couple of years ago at a convention who I knew pretty well. And boy, I don't usually come back at somebody really hard in a public setting. I mean, I've done it in rehearsals and stuff like that, but this is completely different. And the gal says, can you believe this? My daughter came up and said that she wants to be a music teacher. And I said to her, are you crazy? Why would you want to do that? And so she's like, talking bad about the profession. And I just kind of said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, how dare you tell your daughter not to become a music teacher? I said, my God, your daughter is paying you the highest compliment in the world. Mom, I want to be just like you. And you're telling her you're no good. How in the hell do you do this? Right. So I think it's so important that we don't step on kids' dreams. We encourage them to do that.
I agree.
Okay, last question.
Yes, sir.
You're looking back at your childhood and you got a chance to talk to Mr. Peak, that band director that started you, one more time. Mm-hmm. What would you tell him?
Mr. Peak and Mr. Coy, I would say that you shed light on a path for me that I never thought about making my life into. Thank you for shedding light on that career and for showing me how to be. So I would tell them not only thanks, but that how much I appreciated them, what they did, and somebody to emulate. And I've done that with Mr. Coy. He's still living. We get together every few years and talk about the good old days. He went on to get his doctorate degree and taught at Shepherd's College in Shepherdtown, West Virginia. And I kept in touch with me in my whole career. And good man. And that's what I learned from him. And I learned it holding the trombone. Yeah,
that's great. Denny, a lot of people have learned from you, and you've been a great shepherd to a lot of band directors and music teachers and kids along the way. And I can't thank you enough for taking some time to chat with me today. God bless you and your family. Give a big hug to Earlene. And man, I hope to get a chance to see you soon in person, man. Give you a big hug.
Well, I will, but I also want to take a chance to say thank you, Charlie. You set the example for a lot of us. You are out here putting this podcast together for the benefit, not just of you, but for the benefit of every teacher, every music educator, every student they have had or will have. Those are the things that make a difference. And so thank goodness and bless you for continuing to stay in the saddle. And I'll be glad to be right there with you.
Thanks, pal. Talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Denny Senseney. Listening to him talk, well, I just want to find a good barbecue restaurant and go have some ribs and talk shop. Denny's down-to-earth approach is so important, and it's so vital. He is totally kid-centered, and he wants kids to have a great experience as a member of the school music program. To get kids to work hard to have fun, and not have fun at the expense of working hard. That's the key, isn't it? Well, we'll be back next week with more great conversations. I really appreciate you taking time to join us on Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. And until then, this is Charlie Mangini saying, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. If you would like to send a question to Charlie or have a comment, please send an email to bandtalkcharlie@gmail.com. We hope you will let your colleagues, students, and friends know about Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to being with you again soon.